Hi guys, this is Shayna from yummyyarns.com, and today I've got a little bit different video for you. It's a walkthrough for my first impression socks, which they're a sideways sock. It's done kind of vlog style, so let me know if you like it. Thanks! Alright, so this is actually a sock. It's knit sideways, so this is actually the instep of the sock. It is a fairly long sock, but if you don't know, the instep is like the top of your foot. So like the toe will go here, and then back here somewhere is the heel, and then up here do the cuff. But the first part of making sideways socks is just knitting across, at least with these sideways socks, is knitting across the heel and the instep and getting that section, since it's just basically a long stretch of knitting without any additional things needed to be added in. So this sock pattern is kind of a scrappy socks pattern, and as you can see, it's going to be vertical stripes. I alternated scrap yarns every 3 stripes basically, and then have where I switched yarns every other row, kind of, well, every 2 rows. So this is reverse stockinette because it blended with the shawl pattern better doing it reverse stockinette. But you could also choose to do it this way and have the stockinette side facing out, and then you have more pronounced vertical stripes on your sock. It just kind of depends how you want to do it. And you don't have to follow this pattern either. For the striping sequence, you can stripe it however you want. You can make a magic ball and not stripe it. You can just use a single color of yarn. You can use self-striping yarn. It just gives you vertical stripes instead of the horizontal stripes that you normally see with socks. So the pattern is written for provisional cast on, but I wanted to show you guys a few alternatives in case you don't like doing some of the instructions as written. So I did not do a provisional cast on here. I just did a regular long tail cast on. Using the first color that I made the stripes with. And then what the difference is between what's written and what I'll end up doing is, what's written is after you finish knitting the body of the sock, you graft, you take out the provisional cast on and you graft the cast on to the final row of the sock. So there's quite a bit of Kitchener stitch, which if you don't care for provisional cast on, if you don't care for that much Kitchener stitch, you can do it this way, where you just do a regular cast on, and then once you're done knitting the body of the sock, you'll just do a standard bind off, and then you'll end up with a little bit of a seam on the side of your sock, but you'll put the right sides together and just sew them. So pretend this is your bind off, you just sew those together, and then you'll end up with your finished sock. And like I said, you can decide, you don't have to decide right now, you can wait until you're sewing the sides together to decide if you want this side showing or this side showing. It'll work the same either way for your heels, toes, and cuffs, because you add those after you knit the main body of the sock. So I'm at the point where I have finished the instep. So I've got, in the size I'm doing, I've got 48 rows of reverse stockinette here. And so next I'm going to be splitting these stitches basically so that there will be a hole that I'm making for the heel. So I'm not going to be knitting across all these stitches anymore. I'm actually just going to be knitting across a chunk of them, and basically we'll knit a flap for the second half of the sock, and then we'll knit this flap, And if you're doing the striping sequence and want it all to be matchy-matchy, just pay attention to which yarns you use for this first section and just match up the striping sequence for this section. So like if you use blue yarn for your first stripe and then a white yarn, you'll want to make sure that you're using the same blue yarn and the same white yarn for the same amount of stripes on this side. That way it won't look like an interruption really, it'll just look like the heel is magically in the middle here. Because we'll add the heel in basically in this spot later on. Because right now we're just, if you imagine what a sock looks like without heels, toes, and cuffs, that's what we're making right now with this. That's the body of the sock. And then once this is done and the sides are joined, then we'll add in the toes, heels, and cuffs. But I'm gonna start getting the rest of my body made up, and I will come back and show you what I mean there so you have a little bit better visual. Hi, we are back. So I have finished knitting the body of my sock, and you'll see there's this hole for the heel opening, which means down at this end is for the toes, and over on this side is past this long section here is the cuffs. So I've already gone ahead and picked up stitches along where my cast on edge is, and that's because if you remember, I didn't do the provisional cast on. If I had, they would already be on a needle. I could just take the provisional cast on out and put them on. But because the way I did it, I had to pick them up and put them onto a separate needle. And now I'm just getting things ready to basically graft the two sides of the sock together, because remember, since they're sideways socks, it's going to have like a seam going down the length of the sock along one side. I know some people are very tactile and that might bother you, but I've never had a problem. I've worn seamed socks before and it's fine. So for the grafting, we're going to put our needle through purlwise through the back stitch and bring up our yarn so we have a little bit of a tail, and then knitwise through the front stitch. And notice they're both still on the needles. I didn't take them off yet. And I'm gonna be doing kind of a, I don't know, semi-correct grafting for this to get it to look right with the reverse stockinette. So we went and did purlwise through the first stitch and pulled it off that back needle, and then I just went knitwise through the second stitch and we're leaving it on the needle for the back needle. And now in the front needle we're going to go purlwise. That's the semi-reverse stockinette part there. And then I did purlwise again for this part. And sorry, the tail kept getting in the way while I was doing this. It was kind of obnoxious, but that kind of happens sometimes. So then we're keeping the second stitch on the needle in front. I'm trying to do some yarn tail management here so it's not in the way. And then on the back stitch, again, trying to make sure that everything's going where I want it to. And I'm just holding the tail down with my thumb. On the back stitch, we're going to go purlwise on the first stitch and off, and knitwise on the second stitch, and then we leave that on the back needle. And a lot of times places will say not to pull too tight so that you can tighten it up later and make sure that everything's good. I always just pull it tight anyways and just adjust as I go. So I went through purlwise on the first stitch and pulled it off the front needle, and then I went knitwise on the second stitch and left it on. And I think I should have done that on the first one too, but I don't know, maybe I said the wrong thing. But then we're just going to keep repeating that. So purlwise off the back needle and take the stitch off, and then knitwise and leave it on, And then you do the same thing on that front needle. So you'll go purlwise through the first stitch and knitwise through the second stitch. See, purlwise and off, knitwise, leave it on. It's that front needle that we're doing slightly differently than a standard Kitchener stitch. And the reason we're doing it this way is because since the fabric that we're working with is reverse stockinette, if I did just a standard Kitchener stitch, it would give us a row of knit stitches. And so the seam would be very visible in our reverse stockinette fabric. Whereas doing it this way, it gives us the look of reverse stockinette because we're putting a purl bump on that front row of stitches off the first needle. And see, now you can kind of see the seam along there. But it's not giving you the bulk that you would get if you did a fully reversed stockinette graft. Which you could do. It just, I don't know, it felt like it was getting too bulky when I was doing that. So I kind of just made up this way and it worked. So it's a semi-reversed Kitchener stitch. Hi guys, so we're back. Got my sock ready to go. This is the contrast color that I'm going to be using for the heels, toes, and cuffs. We're filming this outside, so hopefully you can hear me okay. If the sound's not great when I go to edit everything, I guess you will not be hearing this part. But if you are, that means that the sound actually turned out okay. So what we have here is our finished sock body, basically. And it's a little bit different shape than your standard sock. One, the toes, heels, and cuffs are missing, so the stockinette's rolling quite a bit on both ends, which that's just what stockinette does, so don't worry. Same thing here, it's just rolling. That's okay. You can see that I've got my seam here. If you had done it the way that the instructions in the pattern say and not just winging it like me, you would have a nice smooth join there where you couldn't tell that it was a seam because you grafted them together. But because I was lazy and didn't want to do the provisional cast on, and also so I could show you how to do it without a provisional cast on, obviously, I just did mine by picking up stitches from the cast on edge and seaming it together. And so that's what mine looks like. So mine's going to have a little seam along the side if I flip it inside out. But if it's just like this, because remember it's a reverse stockinette fabric, you're not going to see where that seam is, which is really handy. And the other nice thing about doing the vertical stripes like this is when we go to pick up our toe, we can follow this stripe down to here because this is our halfway mark. Your heel always takes up halfway across. You can adjust that if you need a different fit for your heel, but generally when you're making socks, the heel is half of your amount of stitches. So when you go to do your toe, which you do the decreases, if you're doing a wedge toe like we are, you do your decreases along the halfway mark, half and half, so they're right here, and you can just follow those stripes to know where your half is. So here's my other half. I'm wandering off camera. But I'm actually trying to decide what I want to start with, because you can really start with, if you want to pick up from the toe, the heel, or the cuff first. Whichever one you want to do first, have at it. Have fun with it. If you're not feeling like doing a heel, don't do the heel yet. If you want to save the heel for the last because it's your favorite, you can save it for last and do your heel last. It's really just a pick where you want to start sort of pattern. There are instructions on like which order to do them in, but it doesn't matter. You can just have fun and play around with it. I think though I am going to start with the toe because I like doing the toes. Cuff down socks are my absolute favorite, and So getting to do the toe, it's like, oh, I'm so close to being done. I need to go faster. You don't have to go faster. You can enjoy your knitting, but that's just my mentality. I get to the toe and I'm like, oh, it's the finish line. I'm almost there. It's very exciting. I don't know, maybe you don't get as excited about getting to the toes on socks as I do, but I think it's really fun. So what we're going to do to pick up our stitches, for the sides that I'm doing, I'm going to be picking up 64 stitches. And it's kind of nice because you'll pick up the same amount of stitches here, so at the toe, at the heel, and at the cuff. So each time I pick up stitches in those sections, it's going to be 64 stitches. It'll just be different things that I do depending on where I'm at. So to pick it up, I'm going to take my new yarn, make sure I have a nice tail, and I'm just going to insert this way and draw up a loop. There are kids chasing squirrels around at the park, and it's really cute. These are very friendly squirrels here. They're used to kids. But basically, so I've got 3 here. And basically, I'm just kind of going in under those top 2, bringing up a loop, going in under the top 2, bringing up a loop. And it's one of those things where you can overthink it and be like, oh, I have to have exactly the right amount per row, per all the things. Just, you know, every few sections. So like I did each of these stripes in mine. I've got 4 color sections along the bottom of my sock. So I have 8 total. I'm picking up 64 stitches. I don't know how to mental math that, but basically, let's see, 64, 32 is half of 64. So there's 32 along this side that I'm wanting to pick up. And 8 goes into 32 4 times, right? Yes. Yes, it does. So that tells me that I want 8 stitches for each color band that I did. So let's see how close I am by just going at it and guessing. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close. So that means I'm going to look at this. I might do this one a little bit closer. So I'll take that one out. There. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's okay. If you do this, it doesn't necessarily look like they're all even, but as you're knitting, they'll even out and it'll be just fine. So I'm going to go through and pick up the rest of my stitches and then proceed to knit the toe of my sock, because once you pick up all your stitches, you'll just join to knit in the round and then follow the instructions for knitting the toe, which is just basically you start the toe decreases like right away. And so it's super easy, super fun, really quick wins here. If you need to feel good about your knitting, like you can easily get the toes done on both socks in a day if you're doing them simultaneously. Super quick, simple project. So I will catch you in just a little bit with more of my sock done, and I'll show you kind of how it looks when it's all finished. As you can see, my socks are finished and I love them. They're so cozy and squishy. Ugh, I just love them so much. I hope you guys had fun watching this video and I hope you enjoy making the socks. I've got them linked down in the description below if you're interested. Have a great day, everybody. Happy knitting.